All right, Talk Takers listeners, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today we're tackling Centene's Q4 2024 earnings call.
Yeah, these guys are major players, right? Medicaid, Medicare, the ACA marketplace, you name it.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. Big picture, how'd they do?
Well, let me tell you, they crushed expectations this quarter.
Really?
Oh, yeah. We're talking $36.3 billion in revenue for Q4 and adjusted EPS of $0.80.
Wow.
And for the whole year, adjusted EPS hit $7.17.
No kidding. That's way above what they initially projected.
It is, and they're already setting the bar high for 2025, projecting revenue between $158 and $160 billion.
That's some serious growth. What's driving all this success?
A few things. Their Medicare business is on fire, especially those Part D plans.
Part D, that was a big question mark with all the changes from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Right, but Centene seems to be navigating it like a pro. They even upped their revenue guidance by $4 billion, largely because of Part D growth.
Impressive. What about their ACA marketplace business? Wasn't there some uncertainty there too?
Yeah, with all those program integrity changes, making sure people are actually eligible for subsidies.
Right.
But despite that, they're still expecting strong performance in the marketplace.
So Medicare and the ACA marketplace are looking good. But what about their core business, Medicaid? How did that fare this year?
Well, Medicaid's still their biggest game, covering over 13 million Americans.
Huge.
But 2024 was a roller coaster for Medicaid, with all those redeterminations happening.
Yeah, those eligibility checks after the COVID public health emergency ended had the whole industry on edge.
Absolutely. But it looks like Centene managed it pretty well.
How so?
Well, they say most of the redeterminations are wrapping up, which means more stability moving forward.
Makes sense.
Plus, they're banking on a return to more balanced rates that reflect the actual risk of their members.
Smart move. So stability in Medicaid, growth in Medicare, and the ACA marketplace sounds like a recipe for success.
It does, but they're not just resting on their laurels. They're also doing some really innovative things within Medicaid. Oh, tell me more.
Well, for example, in Nevada, they're using tablets to connect expectant mothers in rural areas with doctors through telehealth.
That's awesome. Bridging the healthcare gap with technology.
Exactly. And in Illinois, they've got this food as medicine program for managing hypertension. They provide nutrition counseling and medically tailored meals to members.
Wow, that's thinking outside the box. So they're really pushing boundaries in Medicaid. What about their Medicare Advantage plans? How are those doing?
Really well, actually. Their star ratings, those quality measures that attract members, have jumped significantly.
Really?
Over half their members are now in plans with 3.5 stars or higher.
Yeah.
That's a big leap from last year.
So they're keeping members happy, which translates to better reimbursement rates from CMS.
You got it. And they're crushing it on the enrollment front, too, heading towards an impressive 900,000 Medicare Advantage members.
So wins all around for Medicare. Now let's circle back to their ACA marketplace business, operating under the Ambetter brand. You mentioned those program integrity rule changes earlier. Yeah, those could have thrown a wrench in things.
Right. So how do they actually impact enrollment?
Well, the overall ACA market saw a 13% jump in initial enrollment. But what matters for Centene is effectuated enrollment.
Meaning people who completed the process and paid their premiums.
Exactly. And you know what? Their effectuated enrollment numbers are actually stronger than projected.
No way.
Yeah. They're attributing it to a really strong member retention rate.
Smart. So what's their peak membership projection looking like?
They think they'll hit over 5 million members in Q1.
That's amazing considering all the uncertainty.
Right. And the demographics of their marketplace members have stayed pretty consistent with last year, with maybe a slight shift towards silver plans.
Those are the ones with higher premiums but lower out-of-pocket costs, right?
You know it. And it's likely those enhanced subsidies are making those silver plans even more attractive.
Makes sense. People love a good deal.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like Centene is doing fantastic across the board.
Right.
But did they mention any potential challenges or opportunities looking ahead?
Well, they did bring up one big question mark.
What's that?
Those enhanced ACA subsidies. They're set to expire at the end of 2025.
Oh, right. And if they don't get extended?
Centene estimates they could lose 20% to 30% of their marketplace members.
Yikes, that's a big hit.
Yeah. But they are exploring different strategies to adapt if that happens.
Like what?
Well, they mentioned things like adjusting their product offerings and pricing.
Makes sense. Stay flexible.
Exactly. And they also mentioned a growing interest in individual coverage health reimbursement arrangements, or ICHRAs.
ICHRAs. Refresh my memory on what those are again.
Sure. Basically, employers give their employees tax-advantaged funds to buy their own health insurance.
Okay, so it's a different way of providing healthcare benefits.
Right. And with all the uncertainty around ACA subsidies, ICHRAs are gaining traction.
So they're positioning themselves for a potential shift in the market. Smart move.
Definitely. They're not just reacting to the current landscape, they're thinking ahead.
And that wraps up our initial look at Centene's Q4 2024 earnings call. It sounds like they delivered a rock-solid performance and are laying the groundwork for continued growth.
Agreed. Welcome back, Talk Tickers listeners. Ready to dig deeper into these Centene numbers.
Absolutely. Let's talk financials.
All right. So overall, they're looking pretty strong. Their healthcare benefits ratio, the HBR, came in at 88.3% for the year.
Right on target with their guidance.
Exactly. Shows they're managing costs well across all their businesses.
Makes sense.
Now, their Medicaid HBR was a bit higher in Q4, 93.4% to be exact.
Oh, what was that?
Seems like some expected retroactive rate adjustments from states got delayed. Just a timing thing.
So it might even out in 2025.
That's what they're saying. Plus, they've got those nice mid-4% rate increases kicking in for Medicaid next year. Should help balance things out.
Okay, so Medicaid's looking up. What about Medicare? That was a bright spot, Rod.
Definitely a highlight. Strong performance across the board, especially in Part D.
It's amazing how well they handle those Inflation Reduction Act changes.
Right. They really nailed it with their pricing strategies, those strong distribution relationships, and, really understanding their local markets.
It's interesting they keep emphasizing that local focus, not just for Medicare, but the marketplace, too.
Yeah, it's like they're prioritizing knowing the specific needs of each community they serve.
Smart approach. Now, let's talk cash flow, the lifeblood of any business.
All right, let's dive in. So their operating cash flow for the year wasn't quite as high as expected.
Why not?
Some timing issues, mostly. Things like pharmacy rebate collections and changes in risk adjustment payables.
Okay, so just some bumps in the road.
Yeah, more like temporary roadblocks. They expect much stronger operating cash flow in 2025 as those things smooth out.
Good to know. And even with that lower cash flow, they still bought back a ton of stock last year.
Oh yeah, a whopping $3 billion worth. That's a strong signal they're confident in their future.
Definitely shows commitment to their shareholders. And their debt levels are still manageable, right?
Absolutely. A debt-to-EBITDA ratio of 2.9 times at year-end gives them plenty of room to maneuver.
Makes sense. So financially, they seem to be in a good place. Well-positioned for growth, especially with Medicare and the ACA marketplace doing so well. But we got to talk about those ACA subsidies again.
Right, that potential cliffhanger.
Huge driver of growth for the marketplace, making health insurance affordable for millions.
Exactly. And if they expire, it could shake up the entire market.
And Centene could lose a big chunk of their marketplace members.
That's the concern. What are the analysts saying about all this?
Are they worried?
They're definitely watching it closely. It could have a big impact, not just on Centene, but other insurers too.
Understandably.
But they also acknowledge that Centene is already taking steps to minimize the risk.
Right. They mentioned exploring different strategies, like those ICHRAs.
Exactly. They're not just sitting back and hoping for the best.
Always a good sign. Another thing that impressed me was their emphasis on technology and data.
Yeah, they're really leaning into that, aren't they? Using it to streamline operations and improve outcomes for their members.
And it's not just talk. They're actually using data to close care gaps, improve medication adherence, even address social determinants of health. Like that program in Illinois, addressing food insecurity.
Really impressive. It's great to see a company using its resources to make a real difference in people's lives.
Absolutely. And this tech-driven approach could give them a serious advantage in the long run.
No doubt. More efficiency, more personalized care, ultimately better results for their members.
That's what matters. So for our listeners who might be interested in investing in Centene, what are the key takeaways here?
I'd say Centene demonstrated real operational strength this past year, exceeding expectations despite all the challenges. They're in a great position to keep growing, and they're not just adapting to the current healthcare landscape, they're actively shaping it.
It's exciting to see a company that's not afraid to innovate and push boundaries.
They're definitely one to watch in the coming year. Now, ready for another round of This Is Not Financial Advice.
Hit me with it. Let's get those speculative juices flowing.
All right, you ready for another crazy trade idea?
Always. Hit me.
Okay, so remember, this is not financial advice, just some fun speculation.
Of course, of course.
So thinking about Centene, their strength in government programs, their interest in those ICHRAs, What if they went all in on Medicare Advantage, specifically targeting dual eligibles?
Dual eligibles, meaning people who qualify for both Medicare and Medicaid.
Exactly. They often have complex needs that regular Medicare Advantage plans don't always address well.
So Centene could use their expertise in both to create a super specialized plan just for them.
Right. They already work with state Medicaid agencies, understand the needs of this population. They could create a plan that seamlessly integrates both, making things easier for everyone.
That's a really interesting idea. Streamline care, improve outcomes, potentially lower costs.
Exactly. And think about it, dual eligibles are a growing segment. It's a huge opportunity for Centene if they get it right.
They could become the provider for dual eligible Medicare Advantage plans.
A real leader in the space. It's a bold move, but it fits with what they're already doing.
Definitely. All right, Talk Tickers listeners, there you have it. This is not financial advice, but what if Centene became the dual eligible Medicare Advantage powerhouse?
Something to think about.
Absolutely. So, wrapping up our Centene deep dive, they had a really impressive year, strong results, and it looks like they're in a great position for the future.
Yeah, navigating a tricky landscape, embracing technology, really focusing on those member outcomes.
Definitely a company to watch. And remember, everyone, do your own research before making any investment decisions.
We're just here to share some insights and get those conversations going.
And on that note, this is Talk Tickers signing off. See you next time.